Hello, everyone, and welcome back to day 2 of Adobe Live. My name is James Bonanno, and I am joined today by the very talented illustrator, Chris Blackstock. Chris, welcome to the
Hello.
stream again, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Very excited for today.
Yes, us too. I mean, I'm super pumped. I was inspired yesterday to see all of the amazing illustration that you worked on, and Anna, I'm gonna butcher how to say it, anthropomorphic character design. So Chris, maybe once we jump in here, you can kind of give us a little rundown of a brief overview of what you did yesterday, and then get us started on what we're doing today. Before we hop into the actual nitty gritty of today's stream, a couple housekeeping items for those that are new here and watching the stream. Welcome, Steve. Welcome, Wade. Thank you, Wade, for being so engaged here. And welcome everyone to the stream. We're excited to have everyone here asking their questions, sending us some suggestions on names and character updates and all the fun stuff that we like to do over here at Adobe Live. Please head on over to behance.net/Adobe Live to follow along on the action. And join our newest addition to the Adobe Live lineup, our Creative Cloud Express streams. It's where you can check out how to navigate the easy-to-use app. And this week, it's all about creating infographics. So really exciting stuff there. And be sure to check out the creative encores of the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge with Sam Peterson every weekday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So tune in and challenge yourself with a new prompt each day. It's very exciting stuff. And today, about 90 minutes into the show, we will be doing an artist spotlight. So for those that want to nominate, always exciting, nominate fellow artists, fellow creatives, illustrators, designers, so that we can, spotlight you out there on the next stream. So very exciting stuff today. Yes, and the mouthful, that is the intro. But without further ado, Chris, take it away, man. I'm excited to see what you're working on today.
Yeah, definitely. So hi, everybody. Chris Blackstock. Did day 1 yesterday. I'm an illustrator based out of Los Angeles. Also do character design, concept art, biz dev stuff. So yesterday we were working on an anthropomorphic character for animation, specifically 3D animation. If this was 2D, probably wouldn't be so detailed and probably have bigger shapes and a little more rhythm as far as that goes, easier for drawing. But this is going to be for 3D animation. They can build this character out, rig it, so we can kind of get a little more nitty gritty with the details. So yeah, yesterday we established 3 variations of our chameleon biker thug. We're not really sure what his name is yet. We're still figuring it out.
Yeah, we had some good suggestions in the chat.
Yes,
so today,
some very good suggestions.
Yeah.
And so we're going to kind of look over the final design that I chose. And today is going to be all about color, my style of rendering with clipping masks and different variations of opacity and different brushes. And then hopefully we'll be able to move into the highlighting and rendering, and hopefully by the end have something presentable for a finished hero pose character design for 3D animation.
Awesome. Yeah, so, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the final product is. And are you hoping to get to maybe like the export process as well, or is that like the final step of everything if we have time?
Yeah, if we have time. Most likely we'll talk about it, and I probably will just because I feel like I always have a hard time like finalizing. So I have a feeling I'll probably do a few little touches here and there afterwards. Cool. Just the final, like off camera, like, okay, is this really the final? But I want to really try to get it, at least some of the things, to a place where it looks finished. So
cool. Awesome.
So we've got we've got our three different versions here. Don't want to do that. Let me start a new layer somewhere so I can kind of do some drawing stuff. Okay, so we got the same basic shape for most of them. Obviously, you got the short tail here. We got some variations, longer one, mid-range. I liked these scars, so I wanted to keep those. I got rid of the other ones because I didn't want to have too much. So I thought that scar is kind of a nice touch. Got rid of these. Went with this, I kind of liked how these were both these kind of running spikes that, you know, went on the same line of the face, which actually would look nice too from a front view. Ended up going with the shorts.
I was hoping you would say that.
Yeah, I asked my wife and she's like, "Oh, shorts." And I was like, "All right, he's gonna get the cutoff shorts." This is so ended up enlarging these shoes. In the end, I liked having the bigger feet. But yeah, mostly I think we went with the pins, ditched the cigarettes. The cat claw was cool, but it was a little too much. I really liked the shape of the bandana a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I kept that. We kept the ring because that was pretty cool. And then we got rid of that. And we kept the bracelets here. So yeah, and then so let's go ahead and scroll on down here.
I think it's interesting, just like the decisions that are made to really, when you put these iterations together, to keep certain elements, you know, just based on how, you know, the final product will look. And I think I love the idea with the bandana, because even just that simple, taking the bandana away almost makes him look like he could be a park ranger instead of some hardened hobo chameleon, you know, like those like little subtle details. He's
got to commit some crimes, so he needs something to cover his face or go to the store. So, you know, I guess we are in COVID era. he needs some type of mask.
Very true.
Yeah. So, and then I ended up, I was kind of like, you know, I really want to see his tongue. Like, chameleons, one of the coolest things about the chameleons is their tongues. And I ended up changing this fly. I'll get to that in a second. But so this was my final drawing. Let me see if I can just show it to you without. So that's what it looks like without the color. It's not like super clean. I mean, it is, but for me, it's like, you know, if I was going to make this like a pure line drawing, you know, be even cleaner, probably more line weight would be involved. Mm-hmm. But this is great because I'm going to reduce the opacity on this and paint over it. And it's great line work as far as being like almost like containers for the color.
Gotcha.
And defining the different shapes. So that's what I went with. And here you can see I create a base silhouette. So this is important because this kind of becomes my base for the clipping masks. And so I use this also, like, let's say like later on, like I wanted to do some big gradient fills or any type of like where I want to manipulate the shape as a whole. It's good to kind of have a copy of this so you have it. Also, it's good to see when you look at your silhouettes, you should be able to already see the nature of the character. It doesn't always work. It should look nice. You might not always see everything. Like right now, it looks like my guy's got this giant nose and like he's
right.
Like, but we can see the bat, we can see the stance, you know, everything's pretty clear, you know, pretty clear of like what it is. So that's good. We want to make sure that we can see that. And so from there, I go ahead and I start adding the colors. There's so many different ways to go about with a color scheme. I think the one that I'm choosing right now it's probably pretty safe. You know, it's like a green chameleon with relatively like muted tones, like blacks and browns. The red bandana doesn't have to be that way. And the way that I render also allows me to make those changes later if I wanted to. If I wanted to come up with a different color scheme or decide something differently as far as that goes, or change the mood a little bit, I can do that later on. Gotcha. So all of my rendering ends up on a different layer, so it doesn't affect the base colors. So that's really important. Okay. So yeah, so those are my base colors. I want to see if I can pull up. I'll show you an alternate version in a second. So then we're going to zoom out.
So quick question for you on that,
Yeah.
on that silhouette version there. I think that's
Of course.
you know, all these points are really interesting too, as you're working, continuing to like leave breadcrumbs of the layers and the versions that you've created before, so that you can always go back and reference them and see them in different situations. And I think that silhouette's a good example of that. So do you duplicate the entire layer and then create the silhouette out of that by like a specific clipping mask or a specific sort of like overlay mode, or how do you actually go about doing that?
Yeah, for me, it's pretty basic. I just, if you can see down here, I've got a base. What I could do here is, let me get rid of some of this stuff. A little bit clearer. Okay. So I'll go ahead and just have that mask. I'll create it, or the base silhouette, and I'll just duplicate it.
Gotcha.
Just so I have it in case it just unaltered. That's my silhouette. So I'll go ahead and duplicate that. You can see it right here. I've duplicated it in the, I don't know if you guys can see in the layers right here. It's been duplicated. That's what I'm using to make all of my color changes on from there on out. So
gotcha.
Everything, I'll basically go ahead and lock that layer and lock those pixels, and then start coloring the silhouette in.
Okay, I gotcha.
So I've got one that's basically just a flat color. It doesn't matter what color it is. For me, it's just the green that I chose for the chameleon. But from there on out, I'm going ahead and placing all the colors for the objects on here. So this is a pretty complementary color scheme with the greens and reds. Obviously, there's different variations of them. There's a lot more muted reds that cross into the browns and beige spectrum, but it's the same with the greens, where it stretches more into the kind of like turquoise blue or yellow green. So yeah, I know it's going to work. I can keep a lot of the natural colors for the chameleon that I can alter later. Like, a lot of, let's say if this chameleon, maybe I don't want to have some of these scale patterns, and instead, or have them, but maybe I know a lot of chameleons have these kind of like striped patterns or other, so that could be something that I could alter pretty easily if I wanted to down the line. So maybe some of those pops of color can come through that instead of the base.
Cool.
Just so for me in my head, it was to keep it a little less busy, because it's already got a lot going on. So like if I start adding stripes in his skin too, like it might start competing with everything.
And that I guess goes to your point too, turning this into 3D. You don't want to overcomplicate it too, so that when you are looking at that object on another perspective, it still looks simple and clean.
Yeah, you don't want to go too far with things. Obviously, with something where you're doing like a hero pose, like if there is a level of final illustration to it and really rendering stuff, so you can kind of add things in that they can take out later. But gotcha. We're also trying to maximize the personality, instead of a fly, gave him a little shot glass.
I love that.
Yeah. So it's got to be useful for something. And then I did these, it's like a fly swatter pattern on his
that's
bandana
cool.
there. Little chameleon hand and a little fly, I kept the C. I liked that idea.
Yeah, I like that
Captain,
too.
chameleon, whatever. Yeah. So yeah, and then here I that's where the boots, I kind of made his feet bigger. I don't know if let's see if we can pull up that. You can see that the shoes were really small. He kind of had which is fine. That's definitely a design choice, but I think in this case, making those feet larger would probably work better as far as the animation goes. And it's go ahead.
They stand out so much too now with the short, like the jean shorts too, because you have that really thin, nice leg, and the shoes become more of a character, right? Yes,
and that's definitely why I did it, because if you had the pants, it would kind of they would taper down, and you could have maybe smaller feet, and it would work well with the design. Kind of have this big big tapered triangle design, but yeah, I think I made the bandana bigger, made those shoes bigger, made the zipper big. I kind of just made some of the elements a little bit larger they're a little bit more clear. So yeah, I think it was just the right decision in the end.
Absolutely.
So we've got, this is our guy. This is what we're going to be working on today. I've already done some rendering on it that I'll show you soon. But before I get there, I kind of want to just add some more color details and texture to my base model. So when I go to render, I have a better idea of what some of those gradients and color changes are going to look like. And that'll affect, it's not necessarily going to change the rendering, but there might be areas that I don't necessarily need to focus on so much because maybe some of the color changes have taken care of that, or so yeah.
Sweet.
So, yeah, that's
awesome.
Where we're at right now. Yeah.
Let's dive right in. Yeah. And welcome everybody to the chat. I think we got a couple, have any questions in here? I know we got some chatter going on. Phil, yes, I believe Chris colored this off screen, and now he's going through and adding a lot of these extra touches and going through the rendering process. And
oh yeah, and I was going to show you guys, there's like an alternate version, right? And that's with some of the rendering that's already been done. But you can kind of, since this is a relatively complementary colored scheme, you can use a slider, and it's gonna, like, I would go into this and I would alter the colors and stuff, but this is like a quick way for me to see, like, okay, what else could this be like? I'll just go ahead and show you guys.
Yeah, that purple version is pretty sweet. It seems like some people in the chat are digging it. I mean,
yeah. And so, like, you could go, you could just go here and, you can start to kind of alter it. And obviously you're going to adjust some of those colors. You're going to make it, but you kind of get some fun combinations that maybe you wouldn't do, normally, or, so yeah. And then you can see it's kind of sliding back into mine, and then some other ones that maybe don't work that well.
Yeah. Chameleons aren't blue.
Yeah.
But they could be. They could be.
They're like everything. It's crazy.
They are. They are. Yeah. And I mean, that's cool. Like those adjustments, and you can continue to tweak that on a global scale. So you can have a global adjustment like you just did, and you can tweak each of those hues if you wanted to maybe just change the bandana to purple. Like, it's a very easy switch to just change that hue on the red channel.
Yeah. So, so that's, we'll see it like when I get to the end. That could be something else that at the end after this, I might make some color changes or something other than that, but
cool.
So, but yeah, I think I want to dig in on this guy since we don't have a ton of time. We got a lot of work to do. It goes by so fast. I know now. I'm just like, dude, it's too fast. I can't. I'm like, I got 2 hours.
Especially when you're multitasking and trying to, answer questions from the chat and from my little anecdotes. I understand that. So I think it's just fun to see your process here and, do your best to finish, but whatever you don't get to, I'm sure we'll be seeing it on the socials at some point or on your portfolio.
Oh yeah.
Cause this is,
I would hope to get, I'm aiming to try to get this done and posted either by the end of today or tomorrow. Like, I want this to be something, because that's usually, it takes me about a week afterwards to kind of fit it in, but I really want to try to knock this out. So right now I'm just going to do details like, wear and tear, or maybe color changes that'll kind of enhance the character, just make it a little more visually interesting. So right now I've got these boots, and most boots that you've been wearing a long time, especially steel toe, like the toe is going to look pretty beat up. So I'm just going to kind of play around and see if I got, let's see, I don't want that. It's on multiply. I don't want that one, back on normal. And I'm just going to see.
Norish in the chat says my OCD wants to tie those shoelaces. I like them untied.
Yeah, I feel you.
So
we could be doing something fun like this, where they're just kind of dirty, or maybe some kind of splatter. Let's see.
Yeah, and like when you're using a lot of these textured brushes, you're probably trying to switch up different types of brushes so they don't all look like they've just been, duplicated and I guess done on each shoe the exact same way, because naturally like one shoe might be more tattered than the other.
Yeah, completely. I mean, and you're gonna, as you do it, you're gonna probably make changes and see things, or but yeah, they could just kind of be beat up a little bit.
Nothing like a good pair of worn-in boots, though. I'm a big boot guy.
Oh, so it's like some of my favorite things to wear.
I just got a pair of steel toes for Christmas, and it's like been the greatest thing ever. Just having that for the winter has been amazing.
It's yeah. What did I'm trying to remember the brand. It's is it Red Wing?
Red Wing, yeah.
Yeah, I had some of those I had found in Portland a long time ago, and I mean they're still going strong.
Oh yeah, those are boots you have your whole life, and they just like they wear in so well.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing. It's just
That's cool.
A few little details, nothing crazy, just to pop stuff out.
Ferry, your question about what are your best tips on painting and drawing? Maybe a little more specific. I think, Chris, you'd probably have a lot of tips on just that general topic. But Ferry, if you have a little more specific question,
there's a lot involved.
There's a lot of things. I'm sure Chris can help you out with that.
Let's see. I did want to do something on this tongue. Kind of wanted to make it even warmer, maybe even darker towards the tip. Just go with my gradient.
We think he's a whiskey guy or a Jaeger guy, or a Jaeger.
I was thinking he was probably tequila, but I don't know if that is gonna show up as well. I guess he could be. Was it reposado?
Yeah, he could be reposado and just like a little on the oranger side.
Yeah, I can always lighten that, or. But yeah, I figure, probably more tequila, more, probably more desert areas.
Yeah, very much.
Closer to that lovely agave. Maybe it's like maybe we could go mezcal maybe or something.
I was almost going to say mezcal, but then he's like too sophisticated.
Be too fancy. Yeah. This is like bottom of the barrel tequila probably. It's probably why it looks that way.
I know. It like looks way too dark. Philip says he thinks rum. He could be a pirate. Yeah, I mean that's an option too.
For sure. I think that is. Oh yeah, he could be island of Madagascar or something like.
Yeah,
could be a tropical chameleon for sure.
It's pretty funny.
I didn't even look that up. Where I'm sure chameleons live all over the world.
I'm sure someone in the chat would know that sort of information.
Yeah, who knows about the chameleons? Tell us now.
Ferry says he's been drinking beer, wine, and Captain Morgan since he was around 13 years old. Ferry, I hope your liver is doing okay. But that's impressive. He says it accelerates my mood and brain a lot. At times it certainly does. That's for sure.
Yeah, I tend to not. I am not a drinker and painter. Those do not go hand in hand for me. Drinking makes me not want to make art.
Yeah. Well, that's a reason why you shouldn't drink, because clearly your art is amazing as it is. So lay off the sauce if that's the case.
Yeah, I used to smoke. I used to smoke a lot of weed when I was younger, but I think becoming a father and just the workload, it doesn't really make sense to me much anymore. It's just like, I can't relax.
Yeah, I feel
no time to relax, man.
I know. I used to get like upset with myself because I was never really a big smoker, but anytime I would, I'd always want to be that guy that got super creative and illustrated some really sweet painting, and it never happened that way. I'd always get like lazy on the couch and watch a movie instead. And I'm like, this is not productive when you're an adult anymore.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I've felt as of late. I'm just like, this isn't going to work for me.
Right.
I wish it was. I wish it did. I wish I was that kind of, I mean, or do I? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I wish I could be a pothead again. No.
Yeah. It's like,
yeah, no, I don't. But yeah, for some people it works, it like gets the juices flowing and all that stuff. But
yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
not for me anymore.
Hey, creativity, however you find inspiration. I mean, everyone finds inspiration in a different way. So whether it's that or whether it's, going for a walk or drinking a cup of coffee, whatever it is, everyone sort of finds their rhythm some way or another.
Yeah. Or you should try to figure it out, because you're right. Like we were talking yesterday with overcoming creative blocks. And I think for some people, it's definitely some mind alteration,
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I was just right there. I'm just kind of cooling down some of these elements just to give them a little variation, make them pop a little bit. We'll probably do that with his legs as well. I don't know how much theory is behind these decisions. It's just doing it a long time. You're just like, I know this looks good if I do this.
Right.
And I know nice color variations can really help with a piece.
Well, and it would probably make a lot of sense in reality too, if this chameleon was humanized, that there'd be a darker spot of that tail based on wherever that light is being drawn from too.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with chameleons, they do have a lot of color variation. And also, I mean, it's something that I'm not doing in this piece just because it's almost something that you could do modeling it, but the scales, on a chameleon are all right next to each other. I mean, it makes up their entire skin. It's like, a plate of armor. But style wise, I definitely wanted to stay away from that. Work wise, it's a lot. That'd be a lot to paint. So I'm just, I kind of pick and choose, like, especially like having it here in the eyebrows, because that's, that's how all the skin would look. Right. And just having in certain areas, just to kind of make them stand out, I think works pretty well.
Well, and it's interesting with illustration like this and this anthropomorphic. Anthropomorphic. Thank you.
It's not easy.
I was saying it perfectly yesterday, and then I just got caught up on it. But I think in that context, viewers and people who see the final illustration allow you to get away with it because it is all, in a way made up anyway. So there's parts that can become reality, and there's parts that you can make the creative decision of how you want to add the scales and where, and nobody's going to really question it.
Completely. That's so true. And it's like, again, the beauty of fantasy and character design is you kind of just get to cherry pick all the things that make something cool or special, or however pushes your story forward.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
So right now I'm just going to do, I'm just using a hard round brush, and I'm just going to maybe alter some of these scales and just give them, I'm just going to make a few of them a little bit different colors just to give some variety here. We'll just kind of help pop this out too.
Sorry, everyone in the chat. We're getting crazy. I'm going back to find some questions here. But Philip, I know you had a question here about how Chris filled the solid areas with the gradient color, and you were just showing us that, but maybe just.
Oh yeah, of course. Okay, so right now I've got this base layer over here in my layers. If you guys look over here. Right here, it's a base silhouette. So I have that locked, which is this, it says lock, and it's got a little checkerboard. You just click on that, and what it does is it locks the pixels on your canvas. Specifically on that layer. So now this whole silhouette is locked. Now, if I want to get more specific, I'll just go ahead and just use a magic wand or my lasso, and I'll just select an area. Let's just do his chin or whatever, So I select that. And then what I was doing is going over with my gradient tool. You could have it either on the straight gradient. There's also the, spherical. You have ones where you can put in multiple colors. I just usually either use the spherical or the straight gradient. And then I just go ahead and put it in.
Gotcha.
And then when I come out, there it is. It's right there.
Cool.
Actually, it's kind of nice. I might do that. So yeah, that's how I was filling in those other colors.
Cool. Yeah. So you're primarily, you're selecting like you would sketching or drawing, like you're going through each part and adding the gradient as you see it starting to develop.
Right. And so like, I'll do that. I'll do exactly what I just did. And I'll go ahead and I'm going to do a little bit of a gradient on the chin because I thought that was actually pretty cool. So since I'm not going to go up here, it doesn't matter if that's selected. I just want to make sure down here, those little spikes, horns, whatever you want to call them, aren't selected, as well as the scales, because I want to do those individually. But let's see if I can do, let's see what some of this might look like.
Man, it's amazing how just that, every little detail you add and every little piece of it, the original version you showed us yesterday, I was kind of blown away by, and then each one just starts building on top of the other, and you don't think it could get any more dynamic, and then each of these little changes totally amplifies the piece.
So yeah, let's see if maybe, maybe I like that blue better, right? And that's going to pop it out more. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's you can kind of go through, and that's why it's good with this stage before we start rendering. You could almost have a finished piece, even though it's very flat. You can kind of create a lot of dynamic areas of interest and focal points just with the way that you're coloring, using those gradients, using spot colors, using textures. It gives a lot to the painting before you even dive into the rendering and the light source and all that stuff. So
and now as a maybe some advice to someone that's starting out and creating an entire illustration like this from start to the final render process, would you recommend someone like that go through the entire process and actually start rendering, or just maybe stick to getting to this point and dabbling in that before trying a different project? Or is it important to start from the beginning and really follow the entire process?
I don't know. It depends on what you're trying to do. I think this is a process that you get to, I think the most important thing with all of it is just learning how to draw and render. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I don't know what is flying above. Can you hear that on the?
I heard it a little. I was like, oh, he's in LA. It's a helicopter.
Yeah, exactly. Something happened on the freeway.
Yeah.
Eventually you're going to get to this step.
Right.
And you're going to be, you're going to find your own process. This is what I do. There's a bunch of different ways. Some people just paint, you can just hit it and go for it, and it can be much more painterly, and you don't have to do this final drawing ahead of time. You don't have to make everything really clean and flat. It's like you can really let texture show through, or paintbrush, or there's so many different ways to do it digitally. But like foundations are so important. The reason I'm here doing this is because I've done thousands of hours doing foundational stuff and figure drawing and drawing cups and spheres and pyramids, and and like studying facial structure and like textures. And so it's like just learning how to render is key, right?
Yeah. Then
you can, color and all that stuff's great, but if the rendering's not there, if the form isn't there, the foundation's not there, it's always going to fall short no matter what.
Yeah. Right.
And so I think your foundations come first, color will follow. Again, this is a technique that I like doing. There's so many other ways to kind of get to this space, but
yeah, that's, we were, for those that weren't on the stream yesterday, and you want to go back and watch the replay, we talked a lot about that. Head over to the Adobe Creative Cloud YouTube. But we were talking about that exact same thing, Chris, of like knowing the foundation and practicing over and over and over again through repetition. And, as an example, I've been recently getting into playing guitar, and I can start to string a few songs together, but I'm like, all I want to do is be able to play these songs, but I can't rush there until I know basic chords and progression. And the same applies to a field like illustration like this. Like you have to know the shape and how to create that shot glass before you can add a shot glass into this chameleon's mouth, you know?
That's a great example, because there's nothing more like rewarding, but also more boring than learning an instrument. And like that first like 6 months to a year where you're just like, God, I suck.
Yeah.
I've got to learn all these scales and chords. Depending on what you're playing, it's like, it is like all this theory. You're like, okay, when is this going to like start feeling like a natural process? But then once you can do it, and like you said, once you can start to piece those things together, you're like, holy shit. You have that aha moment where you're like, this is amazing,
Yeah. It is. It's the
free
journey
flowing
too.
and
Yeah, I totally agree. Hello, Annika and Steve and Rob. Sorry, I'm a little behind here. We're just getting into some chatting. Stony says he's in awe of your talent, Chris. Stony, you're not alone.
Thank you,
I
Stony.
am as well. Let's see. And it looks like we had a question about locking and then painting, drawing on it. I'm not exactly sure what the question is, but maybe just quickly explain why you would actually lock the layer and paint on that layer as opposed to just leaving it unlocked.
Yeah. I mean, my main thing for locking the layer is so that I don't affect the silhouette. And also I can do this and it's not going to go off my figure. It's going to stay on there. So when you start doing more textures and stuff like that, it's nice to have it locked. When I do my clipping mask, which I'm going to show you guys for the shadows, it's nice having the layer locked as well, because that it basically creates its own locked layer in the clipping mask that I'm going to be painting on as well. So making sure, because since I have a clipping mask on top of this, if I didn't have this locked and I started altering that silhouette, well, then the clipping mask that's on there, its shape is going to start being altered as well. And it might start showing some of those strokes that kind of go off the page or off the character. So that's a reason why I lock those pixels.
Gotcha. Yeah. So there's more than one reason behind that, actually. So yeah, great question from the chat there. And that was something I was kind of curious about as well. So it almost creates that mask for you too on the clipping mask.
Yeah, and it's what I used to do before I was like, I should probably figure out clipping masks after like 6 years of painting digital. I was like, man, all these other people are doing it. I should probably just like take the time and learn. And it's like, hour later, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was it. That was like what I was so afraid to dive into. So, I mean, that is the cool thing about Adobe Live and all these streams, is you can pick up so much stuff for free just by hanging out, watching another artist create. It's pretty cool.
100%. Yeah. So there was actually like a follow-up to that. Sorry, Kevin, I didn't see your question there, but they were wondering about lock transparency as well as how you made the pattern in the handkerchief. So maybe you could talk to that a little bit.
I don't know if the transparency part. I'm not sure what that.
Let's see. Not just a locked layer, specifically lock transparency.
I don't know, because there is no transparency in this.
Sorry, Kevin, if you're still here, just if you can clarify that a little bit. I'm a little confused. I don't
know if he's referencing the line work or the design on the handkerchief.
Maybe the design on the handkerchief, if I take a guess.
Because that's that was just drawn directly on it with that specific color. I mean,
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, there's no transparency in that. And obviously the line work that's at 57%.
Gotcha. Oh, I see. They were just clarifying.
Yeah, so if we zoomed out and we, if I put that at 100, there's a 100%.
Gotcha.
And so we have a different feel now. This is much more graphic. I'm not going to get the same level of rendering that I want. It feels less 3D. Not that you couldn't deliver something like this. I mean, you could still figure it out, but having that reduced transparency, it kind of still gives me a lot of those guidelines, but then it's easier to paint over. And so if I need the line there to kind of hold it in or maybe define a shape, I have it. But if I don't, I can go ahead and just go right over it.
Cool. I saw what you were saying there, Kevin. Thanks for clarifying.
Okay, do we get it figured out?
Yeah.
Okay.
So onward and upward.
Yes, almost done with. Oh shit! Shoot, doing the wrong layer. That happens all the time. Boy, is it frustrating. Yeah, there's nothing worse than like being an hour in on something and be like, oh my God.
Yeah. Like, what layer was I on?
Yeah, no. I can't undo it. I can't go back far enough.
If you've done anything in Photoshop, I think it's a rite of passage to create something on a layer and then like 30 minutes later realize you did everything on that one layer, or only 2 layers when you meant to have 50. It drives you crazy.
There's something else that that'll happen to me with like doing what was I just gonna say? I gotta remember. It's with the layer work. Let me think about it for a second. But yeah, very frustrating when you get deep into a layer. Oh, I had a question for you. I don't know if you know this, but do you know why you can't, like, with Photoshop, I feel like there's probably a limited amount of memory that it has, but like, why can't I just undo to the beginning of the painting or something? Or I feel like you should be able to go further than you can. And I'm wondering if that's just how they've limited it for the program to run smoothly, or do you know anything about that?
In terms of like different steps that you would go back all the way. Like,
let's say I want to go back. Yeah, exactly.
I gotcha. Yeah, I've never, I've always just brought up my history, like my histories, and I've gone back to a certain point and then I'm like,
right.
So that's it. Like I can't go back any further. Maybe
I know you can kind of like bookmark it or so, right? You can create spots, I think, right, within the histogram or something like that, where you can kind of like bookmarkers. I can't remember. Not that I do any of that stuff, but I'm like that was always one thing that's. Oh, go ahead.
Like a sort of like a milestone or something where you go back to a.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so it seems like Steve in the chat is saying you can through history, an older feature. It looks like we're gonna get a little more information there, but. Change the history, undo under preferences. Yeah, so it might be like I bet you in preferences there's a setting that maybe limits the amount of history that shows just based on like a cache and a memory, like you were saying, and then maybe you can actually undo that and be like unlimited undos, unlimited Command Z's.
Yes, please.
Wade says you can set your history states up 1,000.
Ooh.
Sweet.
Okay,
wow.
I gotta do that.
My computer.
I'm gonna hang out with Wade for a while.
Seriously,
just teach me.
Yeah. Well, that's what's great about these. Great about these streams is no one is above getting answers to things they don't know, and I love being here as a host for you, Chris, and learning about more illustration and getting information from those that have joined the chat. So. Keep them coming, everyone. It's a great format here on Adobe Live.
I'm just going to save real quick because I have not done that yet.
Someone asked me yesterday, right after this stream, I had a video stream that I was a guest on, which will be after the stream as well today for day 2. And someone in the chat asked me what my favorite tool or my most used tool was in Premiere Pro. And like immediately I'm like, oh, the save tool. Like that tool, I save every 5 minutes, not even knowing I do it. Yeah,
it's very smart of you. Yeah, I've definitely having the Command S. It's like, okay, just remind yourself.
Yeah, in my sleep, my thumb is just going like this. Like, okay, Command S, Command Z.
Yeah. Okay, so I'd say we're pretty good as far as like some of the details. I can and also there's something I can add later as well, because this is this layer is going to be separate from my rendering layer, my shadow layer. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into that now. I'm just going to throw it on there so we'll kind of have an idea of where I'm at right now. So as you guys can see, I've got this shadow layer that I'm building up right now. There's a few different ways to do this. Currently, the way I'm doing it is I'm doing it as a one color shadow on a clipping mask.
Okay.
And I have it so it's like it's just black. It's at 40% opacity. The reason I'm doing it this way with the one color is that if I'm going to switch colors later on, possibly, it gives me a little more leeway because it's going to adapt to whatever colors underneath it because of the transparency. Some people use multiply layers to do this as well. But this is how I'm doing it today. And then I'm using, that's not the button I want. Using the this soft texture brush. Gosh, I'm trying to remember what it's from. I think I might have gotten it from the Domestica course with Joel Santana. It might have been one of his brushes that he liked. And then I've kind of changed it a little bit and just added some shape dynamics. So I have some taper in it so that it's not just one thick line. And then it's got the dual brush on, if you guys can see, a little bit of the smoothing. So
I didn't know you could do that and go into those brushes and actually continue to tweak them to better serve.
Yeah, so it's like you can see there, if I take off the shape dynamics, it's just going to be a even brush thickness. It won't change at all. So if I put in that shape dynamics, and then you can, if I click on that, you can see you can affect the size jitter, as you can kind of see it. The texture changes, kind of the jitter of the brush. It's not as smooth. So I want to keep that. I don't need any jitter. This is the diameter of the tapering. So if I go that all the way up, it's going to go back to that flat. The diameter is at 100%. But if I bring it all the way down, then you can get these nice fine points.
Oh, cool.
And then you can decide how that's controlled. I like doing it through pen pressure. It just feels natural. It's almost like a brush. The harder I push, the wider, the bigger, thicker that stroke is going to be. So, but you have other options: pen tilt, stylus wheel, fade. There's just other ways to get to that result. So yeah,
Very
that's
cool.
what I have. With that, I'm going to have it on the black. I've got the shadow. And since this is on a clipping mask, I'll just show you guys really quick. It's the same thing where no matter how it's going to stay on my character, right?
Right.
So that's a nice feature to have. I've got most of my first pass done. I got to do some of these little horns up here. And I'm also doing a pretty basic lighting right now. It's relatively top down, maybe from the upper right slightly more. But this is a pretty general lighting scheme.
And that may be a very basic thing to address, but just for anyone starting out, in this kind of illustration, like when you're rendering this way, lighting, knowing the direction of where you want your light to come from or being reflected off of is so important, because you can't really add shadows or highlights unless you know where that light's coming from.
Yeah. If you haven't established your light source, you're going to have a real hard time.
Yeah.
It's not gonna make sense to anybody's eyes. They're gonna be like, I like your drawing, but the way you rendered it makes zero sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really important. You can see we did that. And we, again, a lot of this stuff, you can kind of approach it, the way that you want to, as far as how realistic you want this lighting to be. Don't forget, this is a painting. This isn't a photograph.
Right.
You're gonna make decisions based off of what looks good, what enhances certain characteristics. So don't be afraid to cheat. Don't be afraid to kind of create some of your own not rules, but just it's okay to maybe put some bounce light somewhere where there's no light source, because you want to help model that 3D space, or you can make those kind of decisions, especially with illustration.
Totally.
So again, I can do it this way, and then the nice thing is I can just hold on that tilde key, and then I can kind of go back if I wanted to soften it a little bit. So I kind of like that method where I can add it. And right now I've got it at the flows down about 60% and the opacity is around 49%, 50%. That way I can kind of build up my shadow, which is nice, and it helps me render it a little bit better, especially when I'm creating my core shadow here, which is right in the middle. And your core shadow is going to be the darkest area of your shape, because since we have light coming from above, and then you're going to have reflective light and some bounce light below, so you're going to have this core shadow. There's going to be the spot in that shape that's going to be getting the least amount of light. And then you're going to have a cast shadow,
right on the
underneath. And that's going to be, and this isn't going to be not much, but and you're going to make sure that adheres to where you're drawing your core shadows and your form shadow there. You don't want the cast shadow going the opposite direction, right? Or again, it's like we're trying to fake this realism, at the same time make it our own, but you want to make sure that you're following enough of the rules that it can trick the viewer into thinking this thing or something lives within some type of global lighting space. Because our eyes are really good at picking out things that don't look right immediately. Yep.
Yeah, especially when you spend this much time on a piece and the viewer picks out the one thing that you might have missed, or the one thing that you did
exactly
a little incorrectly. Like, you definitely don't want that, and the last thing you want is a client to point those out as well.
Right. And the more you render something, the more it's going to stand out if it doesn't look right. So
I have a couple questions here from the chat / just my own personal question. So seems like some people want to know about lighting in terms of maybe the best sources to, if you're just starting out, learn about key lighting and casting shadows and things like that. Do you have any recommendations on the best way to kind of get started on that?
I mean, definitely there's a lot of stuff online. If you just kind of look up kind of like lessons, everything. I would pinwheel of death there. I would look up like foundational lighting, still life painting. Still your best bet when it comes to learning how to light objects. Right. Start with a sphere and a cube and a pyramid, or a cone. That's how you're going to learn, right? Because every single shape is made up of those shapes. So or every single surface. So it's like, if you can learn how to do that, it's going to give you all the information that you need to apply that to any other surface. Obviously, when it comes to different materials and stuff, looking up those materials, how they reflect, just looking at it in life, and kind of, once you have the core values of like, okay, here's my, form shadow, my core shadow, reflective light, there's some bounce light, I've got the spectral highlights. Like, once you know those, you can look, okay, I've got this water bottle, and I can see the light here, then you can see the core shadow, and then this is the form shadow over here, and some of the reflective light, and so you can kind of start to pick out these things. And so as you apply that to your own paintings and drawings, you can make those decisions.
Awesome.
But yeah, you can't, there's no easy way to do any of that. And it just takes a while and a lot of patience and a lot of hard work and a lot of repetition.
Yep.
I still a lot of the times feel like I'm terrible at it. You just see some people and you're like, God, they're good with light, you look at a lot of old masters and stuff, and just, it's like these dudes were doing it live, no reference other than maybe plein air or a model, just unbelievable.
Yeah, it is.
So,
It's pretty impressive. I think some people do certainly have it in their DNA, and you're more aware of your surroundings, and you just kind of can see that all the time. And I think for me, like the knowledge of lighting as a filmmaker and a photographer first, and being
yes,
interested
definitely.
in illustration, like I see the same method of lighting. It doesn't really change, but you're coming in here and adding that and recreating it. Whereas like as a photographer, I'm using the light at my disposal to create it on the spot. So it all applies to each medium, but you do have to understand a little bit of a base knowledge of it before starting.
Yeah, I mean, and that's honestly, that's a great point too. You know, if you're somebody that's just on the internet all the time, or like that's where you get most of your reference, find your favorite movie, you know, look up great cinematographers, look, you know, like, gosh, like, whoa, someone was, I was looking at Blade Runner 2049. It's
so
dude,
good.
I mean, there's a painting in every shot. Like, it's just unreal, you know? So, you know, those are also a great way to just kind of those are your own master studies that you can kind of create. Right. But that is one thing they do in school, which I think is a huge help, is you find somebody who's already done it really well before, whether that's an old master or an artist that you admire, and copy it. I mean, you're going to, you can see it, but once you actually do it, and if you can figure out how to do it, then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I understand how he did it. I know why it works. And then you can go ahead and apply that to your own work.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point too, and a huge piece of advice. And it's in no way that copying. It's really used as a study, and we did the same thing in film school.
Master copy, master study. Yes,
right,
for sure.
Right, exactly. Like, and I think you really do learn. One, it puts things into perspective, just how talented these professionals and, you know, the top of their class are at what they create, because you realize, wow, there was a lot of thought that went into this lighting, this composition, the reflection of light, the diffusion of light, everything that goes with those decisions. And the more you practice, and do it yourself, you know, the better acclimated you are to work on it in your own work.
Completely. And it's, I mean, look, that lighting is the hardest thing to do. And I mean, like, and it goes with, you know, with animation, it's like that's why they've got all of these different lighting artists that are working on these scenes, because without proper lighting, everything changes. It's like having great lighting, it just really will make a scene. And it's the same thing with art, you know, with your piece, with your character. If you have great lighting, or know, you know, can really render the light, it really changes how you perceive the character. So absolutely. really important thing to learn.
Yeah.
Takes a long time.
On that same topic, we had a question about, for you personally, what do you think the toughest element is to render? Like clear glass, metallics, fabric, dirt. What are your? Yeah,
definitely like metallics and glass. Just because you really have to. There's just a lot of factors involved, and you know, especially with metal and glass, you're also thinking about the world that it's surrounded by. So there's ways to fake it and stuff, but things that are really reflective, it's like, well, what's it reflecting? You know, it's like if you're in a mirror, it's like you can't just draw a shiny mirror. There's something being reflected in that mirror. Well, the same thing goes with those metal surfaces, those glass surfaces. They're going to be showing you something from that environment, whatever it is. So you have to make those decisions as well, instead of just, you know, this is my character. It's like, okay, where is my character? And, you know, what else am I showing within this piece that's a part of the story?
Yep. Yeah, huge point there as well. Good questions, everyone. Keep them coming. We got about an hour left in the stream here, so I know it's crazy.
I'm not going to finish it. I knew it. I was like, I'm not going to get it done.
Well, no, hey, we're getting good conversation, good questions, and of course, whatever you can't get to today, everyone will hopefully continue to follow your work. But for those that are still in the chat, you know, keep those questions coming. In about 30 minutes, we have our artist spotlight, so make sure to stick around for that. And for those that are just tuning in and you're just joining us, we're here with Chris Blackstock, and he is rendering a an illustration of this chameleon that we don't really have a set name yet, but maybe we'll get to it at the end of today, and going through all of his tips and tricks and his professional life as an illustrator. So very interesting stream happening over here. So just wanted to give everyone the heads up and basically tell you, Chris, to speed it up or you're not going to finish. So.
Yeah, no. I know my wife saw it and she's like, "Are you done?" I was like, "Nope, I got a lot more work to do."
It's hard, man. It's really hard to multitask in this sort of setting. So you just get done what you can.
Yeah. I mean, as long as what I'm putting out there right now is helpful, and if I'm setting myself up for success after this, the worst thing is you do all this work and then you have to go back and change it.
Right.
Be like, whoa, didn't do that right.
Yep.
This looks terrible. So, so far I think everything's looking pretty good.
Yeah, it's looking awesome.
And probably what I'll do, let's see what, okay, so it'll 11:30 or no, when's the
in about 29 minutes now. So I'll give you the heads up when we're a couple minutes out, so you can get everything prepped, and we'll do about 10 minutes ish on our artist spotlight, and then you can use those last 20 minutes to do any finishing touches. So you got a little bit of time.
Okay, cool.
I did have a question for you that I meant to ask you yesterday, but and I'm sure people in the chat are eager to know what. So you have a tablet that you're using. Are you ever using any computer in the background to render anything, or are you just sticking with your tablet most of the time?
Yeah, everything is done on the tablet that I'm using right now. So all the rendering, everything's just done on Photoshop on my Cintiq. I have a 27-inch iMac that is like my main screen that I'll throw all my reference or things I need to search, or the basketball game or whatever. That's kind of my second screen.
Gotcha.
And this kind of ends up being my main screen. And I work off of this. So, and yeah, this is where the beauty of Photoshop is I can do everything that I need within this program. And get to a final piece without having to, export it somewhere else so. I do love that, because even I'll be working in other programs. I've been working on this graphic novel that I was talking about, so I'll do that within Clip Studio, but a lot of the times there's some things that I prefer to do or change, and I'll almost always bring it into Photoshop, even for exporting and stuff. It's just, I don't know if it's because I'm just so comfortable with it. But yeah.
Well, yeah, they've certainly made, hats off to Adobe and specifically the Photoshop team. I mean, they've made it very easy to want to stay in the app and make it, more time efficient for illustrators like yourself to just stay in the program and do everything in one place. It's great.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. Let's see if I can. I'm just going to kind of knock this back a little bit. Okay. So yeah, this is basically me I'm going in and you're just kind of working the shadows, working your rendering, popping things out. Just really trying to think about the lighting.
So are you working your shadows first? So you go through and do all your shadow work, and then do you go back and work the highlights, or do you tend to do them in tandem?
I used to. It's a horrible idea for me.
Really?
Because the shadows are so important with, it's like if I just added the highlights, the piece doesn't really work. But if I just added the shadows, it could still feel rendered. The highlights are the most fun. But for me, I've really made sure that I try to do them at the end, and make sure I do the bulk of my work with the shadow. Because what happened when I was younger doing this stuff is I I would do a lot of the highlight work, and I started to notice that I was using too many highlights to try to compensate for the lack of rendering that I had in some of the places with the shadow work, and really started to realize that the shadows are kind of the star of the show, and then the highlights or the shadows are like that's like the grunt work. That's like that you need it, and then the highlights really should just be the star. You don't need it everywhere. You just that's where your focal points are, and like really make sure that you have that shadow work done to help turn those forms. So
that's it. Yeah,
I try to wait.
Point.
Try to wait to the end. Let's see. So just in a couple minutes, I'm probably just going to head over to the highlight world. One, because it's a lot more fun to watch. And then you can also start to see how some of this stuff is going to come together. Oops.
Yeah, I'm surprised at how quiet your background is for living in LA. I was used to hearing helicopters every couple of minutes, so it's not too bad.
No, it's not too bad. I live in Monrovia, which is
cool.
in LA County. It's about 20 minutes outside of downtown LA.
Gotcha.
And it's up in the foothills, so it's a pretty mellow area. That's where I grew up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a really cool little, like, it feels like a small little mountain town,
Yeah.
But you're surrounded by one of the largest metropolitan areas, but I think there's only 40,000 people here.
I know, isn't that crazy? That sounds, I mean, to someone who's lived in LA before, having 40,000, it's like, oh, that's like a little tiny community, whereas now I'm in like a little podunk town.
Yeah, it's like, because we're right next to Pasadena, which is, I think, 265,000.
Wow.
So yeah, it is kind of funny. And I think LA proper is like 4.5 million, 5 million, something like that. And I think altogether the whole area is around 14, 15 million people.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, it's a lot.
A lot of people, but a lot of opportunity, a lot of opportunity for networking and just, as an artist, being able to create with other people is great.
The big difference with LA too is it's just so spread out that it just doesn't feel that way a lot of the times.
Yeah.
You can kind of find your little nook to live in. I think that's why a lot of people like living here, especially I think in the area that I'm in, like during the pandemic and everything. It's like you got a backyard, everybody's pretty mellow, like there's no real congestion. You got the mountains right there and trails to escape to, and
it sounds nice.
It's pretty cool. Even though they were on fire in 2020.
I was gonna
say COVID hit, and then like 5 months later our backyard was on fire, so that was slightly terrifying.
Yeah, you got a double whammy there, but I mean, hopefully it's okay now, or at least better than it was.
It's okay now. I mean, it was growth that hadn't burned in almost 70 years. Wow. So it was time. And we got a nice little trip to La Quinta right outside of Palm Springs.
Nice.
As our evacuation spot. So,
hey, that's not a bad place to go.
Yeah. That was like, we got this like great deal in like the last minute, like, I'm trying to fill this space. And we're like, we're trying to find a space. You got a pool? What? Okay.
Oh man. Yeah. We were when we moved from LA, I bounced around most areas of Los Angeles while I was there.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived downtown, like right in the heart of the city, and enjoyed it. But then it got really a lot. And we went from that to the van. So it was quite a change.
That was actually probably pretty nice.
It was very nice. It was a nice change.
Yeah, downtown LA is that's a whole different beast.
Yeah, there's a lot going on down there.
Dude, so much. I lived in the Tenderloin for
okay.
About 5 to 6 years in San Francisco. So
yeah,
definitely had my experiences. Yeah. plenty of experience. It's very similar to downtown Los Angeles. Okay, so we got a few things going on. This is good. We can go ahead and start maybe playing with some highlights. So as far as the highlights go, that I usually keep on a top layer, and it's not usually on a clipping mask.
Okay. And is your reason do you have a reason for that specifically, or?
It doesn't, mostly because most of the highlights are happening within the form. They're not usually on the outside, on the edge of the shape. I mean, I could do it. It doesn't really matter, because probably in the end, what I usually do is I'm going to have an ultimate layer on top of everything, like just a final details layer that sits on top of the line work. And that is going to be, where I really do all the kind of final touches.
Gotcha.
And that'll probably end up making it look a little more painterly.
And that's like one final global adjustment layer that you're, adjusting any of those final colors, the highlights, the contrast, all I guess like the things that make it pop.
No, that's like, I would make an adjustment layer on top of that at the end. Okay. This is much more for like the final details that just need to sit on top of the line work.
Gotcha.
Because up until then, everything I'm doing, I want the line work still to be there. And so this kind of comes at the end of that, where I'm done with the line work. I'm done with all, that's where I can start to kind of push some of it back maybe, and start putting the highlights on top. And it'll add some kind of like painterly details, and make it a little less flat in the end.
Cool.
So
all of the steps to perfection. It's on top of each other over and over again. And it's each one is very important in its own way, and you need them, but it always blows my mind just how many layers and steps there are to create what you're creating here.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, you get so used to it. But it takes a long time to that's why it takes a while to kind of figure out your process too. Some people might be like, I'm not doing that, or that's not important to me, or that's not going to get me to my end goal. So that's why it's kind of hard to say, let me zoom in on that, what's important, what's not with some of these things. This might not be an important part of your process or delivering your work. They might not need this piece.
Right.
So we'll probably increase that. So it's kind of up to you on how deep you want to get into it.
Yeah. And a lot of that also, I guess, plays into style too, and deciding, what style you want to create as an artist, because you might, like, you really enjoy this part of the process. And of course it's necessary for those final pieces, but someone else may want something a little flatter and maybe make that become their style. It doesn't necessarily mean that they don't know how to do it. It's just, okay, this is something I enjoy doing more than all the final pieces. Right.
Yep. And that's it. So for me, I'm really trying to make sure that the client or the modeler has a really good idea of the textures and the shapes and kind of the depth of all of this. Because really, it's like when I go to do it, it's like, I'm not going to do this section everywhere. It'll start flattening it out the same way. It's going to give every part of that the same importance. It's like, I can do that here. And now all of a sudden that little piece is popping out a lot, like that's kind of already added enough. Right. I'm like, oh, okay, I can start to push that. And so I'm going to go ahead and I can just start doing that around this area and kind of warm it up. And I can start adding a little bit of these highlights in here. that is going to kind of help push some of these pieces out a little bit.
Yeah, and that's interesting because that's a creative decision that you're making from doing this a long time, but also I think just that part around his eye and those scales, like immediately you're brought into, okay, he's a chameleon, which is what you want people to know, like right from the jump, and where their eyes are being drawn. So if there's a specific element in a piece that you really want to highlight, like making sure that you're favoring that over something else. And that's an interesting point you make of highlighting everywhere and putting shadows everywhere. Like it just becomes flat the way it started, right?
Yeah, it's not going to have the same impact if you do it everywhere. So you kind of have to pick and choose where it's important to you or what you're really trying to push out.
Man,
so for me, it's like this area of the face is really important, right? I mean, this is a huge part of the character is going to be in this area. And so I really want to pop these shapes out, make sure that, because in the end, I'm going to decide like, okay, is this my first read? Is this where I want them to go first? Is this where I want them to look first? Is this my focal point? For me, it was definitely going to be right here, right? I mean, it's going to be this whole head area.
Right.
That's where I want you to go first, right? So, I don't know if I might be able to do it during the stream, but I'll probably end up with making sure that these eyes are probably going to be pretty cool looking. I haven't decided yet. I'm still trying to figure out, but chameleon's eyes are really cool, like the patterns that they have. So I think for me, that could be a place that could help a lot with bringing all that attention there. So right now, I'm just trying to look at where my lighting is, trying to bring it across, not being too crazy with it, because I can always come back to it. But I just kind of want to pop out some of these shapes.
It's so cool. Yeah, you got some chatter in the chat. Everyone is really digging this. William, welcome, Andres, Steve, Caroline. Hi, Caroline. Yeah, I'm sitting here in awe, like everyone else is in the chat. I just looked over at the chat and saw the stream, and I'm like, wow, that looks cool. I'm like, oh yeah, wait, that's what I'm looking at right here. It pops out immediately. So this is really sweet, Chris.
Thank you. And this is, again, this is like, you can kind of build it as you go.
Yeah.
I'll probably be making more and more decisions of like, okay, that looks good, that doesn't, and maybe I even push this back. Probably, add some textural things also as I move forward.
What's so cool is like you're constantly moving, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Like as an illustrator, as an artist, your hand is moving, and in this case, your pen on the tablet is just, there's constant flow. And not only does that keep your mind going creatively, but you can recognize different parts of your piece that you need to touch and, pull back and add to. And it's really, really cool.
Oh, definitely. It's, there's a really great artist, Sean Barber. He's actually a pretty famous tattoo artist in LA now. But I had met him. I worked at a gallery for a long time. I had said previously, a shooting gallery in White Walls. And he was a fine artist there that we showed. Really, really great oil painter. And then, like I said, had become a tattoo artist. But he had done a lot of instructional videos and taught at CCA in Oakland. Okay. And oops, I hit the wrong button there. Whoops. But I remember a lot of the times, one thing that I remember from him with his oil painting is with color and light, he's like, you should always be balancing. Sorry about that. You should always be balancing your painting as you go. It'd be like, okay, if there's something over here that's happening, is like, now go balance it somewhere else. Like constantly be checking your painting, making sure it's balanced. Make sure you're bouncing around. Don't get caught up and overworking one spot, because it's true. It's once you start looking at things, you can start to see how the focal points are changing, or what needs to be changed to bring a focal point around, or maybe the color's not working as well. And so you got to, pull back, take a look at the whole thing, and
Right.
make sure everything's balancing itself.
Yeah. Huge important step to the process, because you can get really in the weeds of, maybe just that eye, which when you're this zoomed in and you're this detailed, like look amazing. And then you zoom out and you realize that there is some imbalance going on in the entire painting and work. So that's a really good piece of advice. Yeah.
And it's just something that you got to do. It's, a big thing with, it's why I think it's probably one of the harder things with digital, especially for people that are self-taught, is learning how to step back, because you're right in there. If you're drawing on an easel or painting or doing plein air figure drawing, it's really easy to kind of just step back, look at your piece. It's almost a natural thing anyways, because you're tired or like need a break or shit,
Right.
But digital, you can really it's really easy to get kind of sucked in. Especially into the details. I think a lot of the thing that probably bugs me the most about a lot of digital work is that it's overly rendered or overly detailed when it doesn't need to be. And it's like mistaking that for good painting technique, or like it's like overdoing the piece. And it's like, well, I get you can render, but like, what can you do with this? Like, let's say I gave you nothing, or like as little as possible, then what can you do with it? And I think that's the really great artists. That's what you see, it's like, what can they do with not a lot? And so I think that's something true. That's hard to learn. That definitely takes a while to figure out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that applies to any creative medium as well. I constantly get the question as a photographer, like what lens did you use to shoot that, or what camera did you use, or what setup, or what's your gear look like? And most of the time I'm not even thinking about that. You're just thinking about sometimes the best work as an artist we can create is when we are limited on the materials that we have, or we're limited on just, pen and paper, just one camera, one lens, and going out and, documenting or creating what it is that we're creating. And in today's world, with the whole comparison of social media, we do get hung up on, oh, well, someone else over rendered this, or look what they did with all the tools that they had. But a lot of times, like what you're doing here today, Chris, it's just the creativity that you have, the skills that you have as an artist speak through all of that nonsense.
Yeah. You just, like you said, I think some of the best work comes when you limit yourself. And that can be really hard. And that's a skill in itself, is learning how to set your own limits. Because sometimes it's like, that's the process, right? Like, I think when you're thinking about ideas, when you're starting out on a project, you don't want to limit yourself, at least not so much that it hinders your ability to think of a great idea or come up with something that's maybe outside of the box. But I think once you start to hone in on finishing a project, or you start to realize that you kind of need to start setting guidelines and being like, okay, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to tell, this is the story. Now how do I get there?
Right.
What's cut the fat, what don't I need? And that speeds up the process a lot too, and you make better decisions faster.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're not going down paths that aren't really going to get you to your end goal.
Right. Rob has a question here in the chat, what your size and resolution of your composition is.
Oh, good question. Gosh, I think I'm working at like 400 DPI right now. I think the canvas is, I didn't do it by pixels, I did it by inches.
Okay.
I think it's 10 inches tall and 14 inches wide, maybe 16. Let's see. 16 by 10.
Okay.
At 400 DPI. So let's see if that's pixels. It's pretty big, 6,400 by 4,000. So
Yeah, that's a nice size.
It's a decent size. I usually work okay big. You know, sometimes I work bigger, sometimes I work smaller. Depends how my computer's handling it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's definitely times I'm like, oh, I can't. I'm getting
Yeah.
too much of the pinwheel of death.
Oh my goodness, I know.
So, but yeah, this actually surprisingly well this whole time. I haven't really had any issues. So
no, it's flying through it. And I mean, in those situations, you know, that canvas is just based on the fact that you know you want to have 3 iterations of this character, so a lot more room to really play with here and navigate.
Yeah, exactly.
Ariania, I'm so sorry if I just butchered your name. Welcome to the chat. Any questions you guys have? We have about 4.5 minutes before we're doing our artist spotlight. Again, as I said, please, if you want to nominate a fellow artist, friend, illustrator, designer, photographer, there is a tab on the stream for artist spotlight. So send us your nominations, and please, you know, we love having more people and creatives on this forum. So send those babies in.
Heck yeah.
This is looking so good.
Yeah, I'm always like, yeah, I can't. Oh no, it's gonna take me longer.
I was inspired after our stream yesterday, and I went and picked up Hell's Angels again to start reading it, because I hadn't read it in so long, and I'm like, this stream made me want to go read every Hunter S. Thompson book again. Dude, just because I don't know, like his character is so perfect.
He's such a beast.
Oh, I know. It's amazing.
It's just funny to think like he was a sports writer. Like this all came from writing for sports. Like
drugs are
how has no one picked up I know. But you're like, how has no one picked up this torch and just done much more interesting sports writing?
I agree, man. He was
unbelievable.
He's a rare
tortured
breed.
Soul.
Very much. Very talented though.
So talented.
Kind of puts you in different worlds, and every time I read any of his all his work, I end up just shaking my head a lot of the time, but in total entertainment and awe of how did he come up with that in it, or how did he think of that, you know, in a sentence.
Yeah, it's madman. Okay.
Phil said that's why I also suggested rum. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah,
that's very Hunter S. Thompson-ish.
Yes, very much so. And see, like, even, you know, with like a final detail. So I'll just go to that real quick. Let's say I want to do a final detail. I could be like, okay, maybe I wanted some saliva or something. But if I can do it, and kind of do it on top of the line work.
Oh, that's cool.
And it kind of becomes a little more painterly, and I can get, you know, I can just go ahead and do it.
That's awesome.
You know, and it goes right over the line. I don't have to worry about it. So that's something that I might do with a piece. And usually what it's like right at the end, you start to do, you know, this again for like something for like 2D animation. It's like you don't need that stuff. This is much more for specifically character design. Even with the animation, 3D animation, they wouldn't necessarily need these details, but for portfolio, for showing kind of how deep you can go or the little nuances of a character, it's good to kind of have these things. And it you know, just that little detail really, it kind of adds to the scale and like the nuances and just having those nice little details. Even though you have all this line work, there's something really something really nice about it now. Like it's just, there's that extra little touch. So stuff like that's I'll be doing as well to the piece as I move forward.
I love that. Each and all these little elements, like I keep realizing you're just adding on top of every little element, and it tells the larger story, and it adds to his character and his personality, or its personality. We're not sure whether this is a male or a female or a chameleon. But all the little details here are really aiding in that personality strengthening.
Yeah. So now we've got that fun eye pattern, right?
Right.
And that's gonna make it stand out even more.
Well, let's hop into our artist spotlight here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Anything we don't finish here, Chris, we'll get to in the last 20 minutes. But maybe we want to pull up who we're featuring today. Take a little break from.
Yeah, let's do it.
Rupert the Chameleon.
Just saved it.
Yes, very important.
All right.
So, go. Allison Vu.
Pretty cool stuff. Looks very much like a editorial graphic illustrator.
Yeah, super cool.
Very cool.
Love that. I love that third, the ones with all the hands there. That one stands out to me right away.
Oh yeah, let's see. Let's check that one out. Oh yeah, and actually it's really nice, loose lines, nice texture. I love the blue and like red orange contrasts. When you see that on a screen, it really vibrates.
It feels like why am I blanking on his name? Like a Shepard Farley kind of color palette of very simple, dark reds and oranges, and in this case the reds and the blues. It stands out for sure.
Yeah, it's a nice. This one's really cool. The eyes. Yes.
Oh yeah.
This is probably most of our internet experiences these days.
Oh, 100%.
How can we monetize you?
Yeah. I mean, that's really cool, because that tells such a story just in looking at it. You can interpret that in so many different ways, especially post-pandemic.
Great composition. Especially something that's so central composition wise to make it that interesting. Really cool. Love all the texture brushes used. I think that's a pretty popular thing these days, but it works so well with simple graphic shapes.
Absolutely. And there's some symmetry in that, a lot of symmetry without it being overly symmetrical. I know we talked about it yesterday. Like, you have that beautiful symmetry with her head in the eyeball, but you also don't have two snake plants or two different coffee tables. Like, you break that symmetry up really nicely. So I like that one.
That one's great. Let's see what else we got here.
Man, so cool.
Yeah, these really are cool.
And going back to like what we were speaking about earlier about that artist style, right? And having something that when you see it on a portfolio like Behance or on a website, immediately, oh, okay, this is, in this case, Allison Vu. And you can see a lot of that consistent style happening in these. I almost feel like these bottoms, like, what is that, 4, 8, 12? They all look like they were done by Allison, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, these are great. And this one on just the scale used here for the storytelling. It's pretty fun.
That's awesome. LA Times, the huge responsibilities and joys of farming. Very cool.
Yes, lots of responsibilities when it comes to farming.
Seriously, I couldn't do it. I always hats off to the farmers out there, really, because I have no idea how hard it would be.
So much work. This one's pretty funny. I don't know. Getting off online during COVID.
That is great.
Great use of iconography and symbolism here.
Oh my goodness.
Got the melons, the eggplant, the bananas, the peaches, the cherries. I think we got some papaya there.
That's awesome.
This is a really cool piece. Again, though, the kind of the similar color schemes. These are cool pieces.
And humor to it. There's so much personality in just that one piece there that.
He's got his like BDSM leather,
right?
That you don't even see at first, actually. and then you're like, oh my gosh, he's or she, he, they,
Yeah.
completely, completely hooked up here.
And you wouldn't know that that would be considered a cowboy without the spurs and the hat. Like you remove the spur and you're questioning it. So it's again those little elements, that conscious decisions from Allison here that really make each of these really interesting and fun to show off here.
Yeah, these are cool. Let's see. What's this one? Oh, that's cool.
Now, is this, Chris, do you feel like most of this is done in Illustrator or Photoshop, or kind of a mix of both?
What? I think it looks like a mix of both, just for how clean some of this stuff is. But I don't know. I had hosted a show, I think a couple weeks ago with Jared Octon, I think is his name. And his not necessarily a similar subject matter, but definitely a strong shape, strong design, really graphic feel. He had basically, his process was to sketch it out and then do all the line work and the shape work in Illustrator, and then he'd bring it into Photoshop and do all the texture work. I think just doing the textures in Photoshop is probably a little more accessible. Not that I think they have all that now with Illustrator. Illustrator is so much deeper than it used to be as far as texture making and brushes. But so this feels very similar to that because it is so clean.
Yeah,
you do have a lot of these kind of graphic vector shapes, but then a lot of this texture looks like it could be applied with a brush.
And there's so much going on there. It's so cool
this one's really cool.
And again, like one thing is the symmetry without being overly symmetrical. Even in that piece, there was you have just by the element of an hourglass is already symmetrical, and the way that they're positioned and the background, but it's not symmetrical. So I think in Allison's work here, there's definitely a conscious choice happening, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, heavy graphic elements. Heavy on the editorial storytelling. This is really, really cool work. Just something that simple. Like, look how much it's really beautiful.
Leopard Shark, very solid title. I like it. We know what we're looking at.
Yeah,
but it's perfect. Yeah, thank you, Allison.
Great colors.
Your colors and really just again very inspired by seeing other artists showcase their work, whether it's for client or personal work. Again, thank you for sharing this, and glad we were able to spotlight some of your work. It's beautiful. Keep it up.
I'm going to follow you, Allison. There you go. There's the click.
I gave you a little follow. Now Chris has followed you. So
looks like you can find her in New York Times, LA Times, Politico. So awesome. Really cool. All right.
Cool. Thank you, Allison. Thank you very much. And again, guys, as I said, Artist Spotlight, great way to get your work out there, get it be known, share it with the world or with the stream. So let's hop back in here, Chris, and we got about give you 15-ish minutes left.
Okay.
To
cool.
Do what you got to do.
Yeah, let's just do some stuff.
Perfect. Let's just do some stuff.
Let's just do some stuff. Let's see what we get here.
That's what my life consists of most days. Let me just do some stuff.
I'm just gonna do some stuff. See what happens and label that. I was kind of curious. I wanted to see if I wanted to maybe drop back this bat and see if that works. Because like I was saying, sometimes with a piece, you don't necessarily want to follow all of the lighting rules, and there might just be something you want to drop back if it's maybe a little too dominating, or I wonder if I could do that with the color. I don't know. So I'm just going to do a really quick, so you can kind of see what that would look like. But as you can see now, it's like, obviously that wouldn't be in that much shadow necessarily, but because it is, it's in the background. There's a lot going on, and I really don't want it to compete with what's happening in the face and the head. So I really like that, actually. I like adding that shadow to that. And then what can happen is something like that with this highlight, this detail layer that I have, is I can go ahead and just in the end, if I wanted to, I can just kind of put these little places where they might, these little highlights. And so now something that maybe could have been really standing out and would be really kind of competing is now going to have its own little.
That's cool.
Special little.
Yeah. And like way more subtle taking that down, but the introduction of those highlights on the nails even brings out the shadows more.
Yeah, it's going to feel more rendered already. And so now you can still see it there. It looks really nice, but it's not competing as much with what's there. So like I said, something, that's what that's about the balance. That's about really learning how to paint and figuring out where you need to make the adjustments. Go ahead.
I have just a mild suggestion if you had the time to touch it up, but that the wrist, his like little spiky wrist.
Yes,
guard,
right here.
Whatever we're going to call that. Maybe sort of making that feel a little bit weathered as well. Like if it is a leather.
Oh, for sure.
Or something.
Yeah, there's, I've done some weathering, and that would be something that we could do. Let's see. We could even maybe make that a bit brighter, just so we can see it a little bit more. But yeah, that is pretty fun usually, because you can kind of get in there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like his little scuffs and scratches from crawling around the desert searching for his rum or low shelf tequila reposado.
Yeah, and you're gonna have it's like right on those edges, right?
Right.
Gonna get some scratches and stuff and some wear and tear.
It seemed like Philip wanted you to shine up those nails, so you did it before you even knew. He seems very satisfied, I think, as is everyone else.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing is, once I'm actually done with this thing, that's where it's.
Oh yeah.
Gonna be going ham on these details with some of this stuff to really make sure that it's popping out. And like I said, it's kind of those finishing touches. Those are the things that are going to make you stand out as an artist. For me, really the purpose of doing some of these things is showing the client that I understand lighting.
Right.
If they wanted something more from this, they know that they can ask. They can trust me that I'm going to be able to produce a piece with different types of lighting, different types of textures. So, within this piece, what we've got, probably like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 6, 7, 8, different textures that are going on here that we can start to use. If we wanted to with these pants as well, you could create a texture with that. Sometimes with this stuff, I'll bring in photo textures and do a really light overlay and then paint on top of that. And so that can always be interesting as well, that you can use. So don't be afraid to use that. Obviously, don't overdo it, because it might look really digital and bad, but sometimes photo textures really help, either as a guideline or something that you can integrate into your rendering.
Gotcha.
Which can be really cool.
Yeah, that's it. I was actually going to ask you that. That's interesting, especially like for something like maybe the belt buckle or the jeans, in that certain situation.
Yeah, like on so like you got this lowish textured brush. Let's see how this looks. So I don't know if you guys can see it, but something like this with these scales, maybe it has a little bit more of this like rough texture. And so when I do some of those highlights, I can use that instead. And it might not look like much, but when you get in there and you start to see it in certain areas, it'll help pop some of those things out. Let's see.
Yeah, even that helps. I mean, that helps so much. You could just go down the rabbit hole and like keep going, but I feel like that helps.
It could get it could get crazy. Yeah, so something like this would be another detail I'd probably hop into that I'm meaning to, but his nails are probably pretty dirty. So those wouldn't stay clean, and that's so again, I'm gonna get in there.
Under those cuticles.
Yeah, right. He's going to kind of have some stuff going on, and that's, you kind of want to just free form it. You don't want to do too much, but it's going to add just this kind of stuff just adds another layer to the story. And it's going to make it that much more interesting to look at. And it's always those things where it's like, you don't even know it's missing until you see it and you're like, oh man.
Right.
Okay. Now we're,
how
much better does that?
I feel that way with that saliva that you did in the mouth now too. Cause before that you're like, oh, okay. But now that it's there, you like it so much, or you're really invested in that element that you're like, oh, I don't know what I would do without it now.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, this is the kind of stuff that, normally this is the stuff that I do at the end. Like I try to get as much detail as I can in the beginning, but not necessarily at the end, but I try to avoid it for as long as I can, because sometimes it can distract me from really getting all of the other stuff that needs to get done that maybe is not as exciting, but like I gotta get this done. And I don't want to lose my place. So I really want to make sure it's like a once through, I sometimes coming back to stuff can be really hard, or coming back to a piece, you don't have the same energy or flow. So it's kind of nice to try to knock some of that stuff out if you can. You can add some of that to the teeth as well.
Philip had a question if you can turn off the outline layer to show us what the piece looks
like.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. Let's see. So that's what it's looking like right now without the outline.
Wow.
So I could completely just make this a painted piece.
Yeah.
From here. Usually what I'll do is I'll keep this as I'm painting, and then towards the end, I usually keep that layer and I'll slowly erase from it, from like what I don't need, or something that's maybe conflicting with a highlighted area, where it's just not necessary. And so I'll start to brush that away. Some areas I like it there, or I feel like it kind of holds it together. But yeah, it's an option that I like to have. And I think for me, it is a slightly more graphic approach that I do like in my own work.
Yeah.
But yeah, could completely just get rid of it and just try to make this a complete painting. But
yeah, I mean, and it looks cool either way. And again, that goes towards your style. Like I like the outline just because it does give it that extra pop and contour. And and like I said, I can, you can kind of, you can play with that and how much you want that to stand out. Yeah. I had one question for you as we kind of near the end here. Are there any upcoming projects, client work, things like that you're really super excited about or proud to be a part of?
Well, saying that color in place is pretty cool. I think there's a Kickstarter. I don't think it's happened yet, but that'll be coming up soon. And that'll just be for like a full coloring book, which is super fun. And all the proceeds will be going to a charity that will, I think, either multiple charities, or I can't really remember. I have to talk to my friend Caitlin, who's helping guide that, but that's coming up. Definitely keep an eye out for Miles from Nowhere. If you go to mfncomic.com, or the Instagram handle MFN Comic. There's a graphic novel I've been working on for the past several years that hopefully will be getting published this year. So
it's awesome.
That's a big one. It's a sci-fi Western
cool
horror.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a little wild, but
Hey, well,
definitely not
congratulations on that.
safe. Not safe for the kiddos.
Perfect.
But yeah, those are the two big things right now.
Awesome.
And then currently trying to get work and hopefully a steadier job in the animation entertainment industry. So this is why I'm doing this stuff. And so if anybody sees it, I'm available for hire for freelance.
Absolutely. Well, if there is anyone in this chat, I'm sure you're first on the list. I mean, if I have any sort of illustration needs, you're the first person I'll talk to, because you're really the first person I've seen do any kind of illustration like this live. But yeah, it's been incredible to see your process the last couple of days, Chris. Really, really awesome stuff.
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, thanks for hosting, James.
Oh yeah.
I know I've also done, I think I did a typography one, and I was just like, I know nothing, but it ended up being one of the best hosting gigs that I did so far. So
yeah, I think it's important. It's important for, we as hosts and just other creatives to be inspired by other mediums. So like I said, I'm a photographer and filmmaker, but I'm always inspired by illustration, by design, by typography, Yep. Even though I'm not necessarily as versed in it as someone like you are. It's always good to get different perspectives, and you never know what it inspires in your own work. So
completely.
Advice.
Yep. Exposure to the arts, all kinds of arts.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. It's all good.
So we got like about 3-ish minutes left, Chris. Any last little pieces you want to hit on before we close out with some housekeeping?
Yeah, I'm just gonna rolling in here, doing a little bit of highlights, and I'll be doing this. That eye is going to be. I'm definitely going to lay in some texture on that, some few bumps, just really pop that out.
Oh yeah, that's going to be sick.
That's going to be really cool. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm in a pretty good place right now. Everything's relatively rendered. I got to work on the shot glass. I'm going to do some more textures and dirt on the jacket specifically, probably even do some tears or something just to make that really feel used and worn. Like I said, little details on the nails, where you could go in and kind of get some of those shadows for some kind of nail grain. Get in there.
Yeah, like tape, or like the stain on the tape, or like that sweat grit, stuff like that,
Exactly. So this is what I'll be doing mostly. And I'm doing all of this because I've got my drawing, I've got my foundation. I made those decisions earlier on that I don't want to have to go back to those.
Yeah.
Once I'm in this process. And so this is the fun stuff. This is where you can kind of really make your piece shine. And
it's awesome. It's awesome. And I think people want a part 3, but I'm sure Chris will be back on, and I hope I get to host you again, or just continue to see your work. I'm sure I will. But again, Chris,
definitely.
thank you so much for the stream, for showing us how a professional illustrator works, and thank you to those that have been in the chat, to everyone watching at home. Thank you for joining and tuning in. A couple little housekeeping items as we wrap up here. We got about a minute left, but make sure to stick around for the creative encores of the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenges with Julia Vaca. And I will be doing day 2, part 2, right after this. I'm going to take a bathroom break, slug of coffee, and stick around for some video and looping video and some tips and tricks I use in Adobe Premiere. So again, thank you to those who have joined. Chris, pleasure being here, and
definitely
hope to see everyone soon. So take care, everyone.
Thanks everybody. Bye.